Alright, so in this video we're checking out the Oukitel 500 watt power station. So this is one of those portable power stations that are good for emergencies when you have those power outages, or also good for outdoor use if you're camping, perhaps on the road and don't have access to a wall outlet. This has 500 watt hours of power energy inside there. 18 650 cells are the batteries. They're 2600 milliamp hours each, and the total pack capacity is like 140,000 milliamp hours, so pretty huge batteries. So for those of you guys that are taking your drones out to the field and want to charge up a lot of drone batteries, this one will do a ton of those, probably last you the whole day. Now this is an entry level power station, one of the smaller ones. That you can get some smaller ones in the 300 watt hour range, but 500 watt hours is generally considered entry level. If you're looking for more capacity, something bigger, then you can move up to 1,000 watt hours or even larger for those for those people that are needing lots of power for long periods of time, when you have maybe for really long power outages. So obviously, in addition to the power station itself, you get a wall adapter to power or to charge up the power station. So this is plugs into your AC wall, and then you get a user guide. So it's pretty bare bones. You don't get a lot. You don't get like a bunch of extra adapters or connectors like you do on some other power stations. And just for scale, here is a GoPro. So GoPro Hero 10 Black, and you can see about how large this is. It weighs about 15 to 16 kilograms, so it's not super light, but it is, I think it's about the same size as the other 500 watt power stations that I've reviewed. So the AC adapter is a 24 volt 5 amp AC adapter, so it'll charge up the power station in about 5 to 6 hours from 0 to 100%. The plug on here that this is using is a 6530 size plug. It's a unusual size. Not a lot of power stations have this. Most other power stations will use a 7909 or a 5525 or 5521, and they did not have an adapter to use with some of my solar panels, so I was not able to do any solar panel testing in this video. So the manual in here is pretty decent. It covers all the bases in terms of what all the buttons do and how to charge up the power station, operating instructions, etc. I'm going to cover some of them here in this video, but I'm not going to go over the manual word for word. Okay, so just taking a quick look around the power station, we'll cover everything here in the front in detail, of course. You got a handle here on top. This is like a pleather or a fake leather handle, and it just collapsed down, but it is kind of noisy. On the left side, you have an air intake vent for cooling down the electronics inside. On the back here, you have some specs on the power station: 505 watt hours, 140,400 milliamp hours of capacity, along with all of the outputs that are in the front, and I'll cover those here in detail. And over here on the right is an air output vent. And on the bottom here, you just have 4 rubber feet that keeps it nice and stable on flat surfaces. Okay, so here in the front, you have all your connections. This is the main input for charging up the power station. That's the AC wall adapter that's included. You have this section here. It's your DC section, so you have your cigarette lighter, and then this barrel plug connector is a 5525. So if you have devices that use that kind of plug, you can get DC power out of here. This is 12 volts up to 10 amps. And then this is the USB section here. So you have a bunch of connectors here. So you have a USB-C power delivery 100 watt connector. You have a quick charge 3.0 connector. And then you have 5 volt 2.4 amp connectors. So you have 4 of those. And these are USB-A. And then over here you have your AC section. And you can turn on all these with the button here. I'll show you that in a second. But you have basically a ungrounded and a grounded plug. There's actually 2 pure sine wave inverters inside here, and a maximum of 500 watts output on this whole power station. Of course, you have your SOS light here, of course. You can turn that on, and you get your various flashing and strobes. So in the main display here, you have different sections here for your DC, USB, and AC. And as you turn them on, it shows you what's actually activated. So you see that the car, the DC 12 volt is activated. You can turn on each separately, so you don't have to have all of them on, or you just have one or two on at the same time. So you can turn that one off and then turn on the AC, for example, or you turn on all three. So if you are not using a section, you can probably shut that down, especially the AC section that's using the inverter. That's actually drawing the most power. And if you're not using the DC section, you can turn that off and then just use the USB ports. You have a display here that shows your inputs, so when you're actually plugged into the wall and it's charging, it'll show you how many watts of power input are coming in. And then as you're charging up other stuff, it'll show you the actual output here in terms of watts. And I'll actually start plugging stuff in here and showing how this is actually read out. Alright, so I got the AC adapter plugged into the wall, and I'll go ahead and plug this in, charge it up a little bit. And you can see this section here is lit up, says the input is actually active, and we're kind of drawing about, or actually it's charging up at about 122, 123 watts of input power from the AC adapter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on the USB section to start plugging stuff in. So I'm using the Quick Charge 3.0 port here and charging up a cell phone. This is a Pixel 2, and you can see it's drawing about 7 watts of power to do that. I'm going to plug in a GoPro here on the 5-volt 2.4 amp USB port there. Now we're at about 9 watts. Go ahead, move this up. Going to plug in another action camera. And now we're up to 18 watts. Going to plug in another power bank and see if we can charge up another power bank. This is one of these small portable power banks. Okay, so now we're up to about 22 watts. Okay, so we'll now use the USB power delivery port, which can output up to 100 watts. So I've got a LiPo charger here. I'm going to charge up a 1300 4S LiPo. Alright, so things are piling up now. Okay, so now we're cooking. So now that I'm charging up a LiPo battery at about 3 amps, now we're drawing about almost 80 watts of power. So you can see here that you can charge up a whole bunch of devices if you're out in the wilderness somewhere, or if you have to charge up your cell phone in an emergency, if your power is out in your home. This will definitely do that, no problem. You can charge up your phone probably 10, 20, 30 times depending on how big the battery in your cell phone is, for example. Alright, so now I want to talk about some use cases that are probably not going to be appropriate for this entry-level power station, and that being limited to about 500 watts of output power on the inverters. You're not going to be able to use things like this, like a hairdryer. So it will work on lower settings, but if you if you turn on the heat, for example, or turn on the fan all the way up, it'll draw a lot more power than the power station is capable of handling. Now, the power station does have a bunch of safety features, obviously included, like many other power stations. It's got over current protection, over voltage protection, under voltage protection, etc. It's got all those things. I'll list them all here on the screen. So yeah, in case you're wondering, the battery management system in this is going to, it prioritizes the longevity and the safety of the batteries that are in there, so they last a long time, so they don't get over discharged and they don't get overcharged, and you don't draw excess current where they actually start getting too hot, etc. So the battery management system does a very good job, like a lot of other power stations out there, to prevent the devices from overloading the power station. So this is one that's going to overload it, but when it does, it'll actually kick off the inverter and actually shut down the device. So let me go and show you that. Go ahead and turn on the AC section and then plug this in. Now there's going to be 3 levels of air that's going to come in here. It's going to run, and you'll see the output power that it's going to be showing for each level of the air blowing. And I'm not going to be able to talk because you're not going to be able to hear me talk. But then once I hit turn on the heat, which is this other red light over here, it'll shut off. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that. So as soon as I turned the heat setting on, it went over the 500 watt limit on the power station, and you heard the beeping. It tripped the, I think, the overcurrent protection on the inverter, and then you get it basically shuts off the plug, so just, your device turns off. You get the beeping and the little flashing light on the screen here indicating that's been tripped the warning. And then all you have to do is just press the AC button again, and that will turn that off. And then that'll reset it so you can turn it back on again, and that will reset everything and you can start using it again. So basically all the stuff that'll protect the power station is already built in. You don't have to worry about that. It's just that you have to be aware that if you're using devices that draw more than 500 watts of output power, they're not going to work with this power station. The overcurrent protection will kick in and the device will shut down. So if you want to use things like hair dryers, air conditioners, microwaves, for example, things that are like 1,000 watts and over, you're going to need a much larger power station in the 1,000 to 1,500 watt inverter to be able to handle those larger, very power-hungry devices. So something to keep in mind. But for other smaller devices, cameras, cell phones, other power, like battery backups, that kind of stuff, this is going to be totally fine for that and great for emergencies. Anyway, that's going to cover for this video. So this product is currently selling on Amazon for $350. And I think there's a coupon code down in the video description. I think it takes maybe 10% off or something like that. I'm not sure how much it takes off and how long it lasts for. So just check it out, click the link, put the coupon code in, and I believe it may fluctuate depending upon whatever sale they've got going on at the time. But yeah, as long as it's still up on Amazon, the coupon code will probably still work. So give it a try, and it's within your price range. It's not bad. Probably with the coupon, it's gonna be like a little over $300 for a 500 watt power station. Pretty decent price in this category. Basically being an entry level power station. Okay, that's gonna do it for this video. Hopefully it was helpful. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.